This program airs statewide on California Public Television and is a California's Gold classic. This series is endorsed by the California Teachers Association, the California School Boards Association, and the California Library Association.
Pan American Super Clipper, world's largest winged transport, is poised for her shakedown flight. 4 huge motors, 6,000 horsepower, speed the 42-ton Sky Leviathan on her way with master airmen at the controls to check her performance. In addition to the captain and the crew of 7, the craft can carry 74 passengers with ease, hitting a new high in luxury as a flying hotel. There's a dining salon for 15, a recreation compartment, and a special dressing room for the ladies. For overnight trips, the passenger sections can be converted into comfortable sleepers. Gracefully, she glides down on San Francisco Bay, starting point of a Pacific test flight to Hong Kong. With transatlantic service also scheduled to start soon, this clipper is the forerunner of a fleet of 6 to make America's bid for sky supremacy on both oceans. Safe in Treasure Island's harbor, she symbolizes aviation's new era.
They were called clippers, after the great clipper ships that plied the oceans of the world during the 1800s. These clippers were airborne, taking mail and passengers across the Pacific to exotic and remote destinations. Places like Hawaii, Midway, Guam, Manila, Hong Kong, and Singapore. From 1935 to the beginning of World War II in 1941, a flight aboard a giant Pan American clipper was considered one of life's true adventures. Pan Am's clipper base was located first in Alameda and then moved to Treasure Island, while the Golden Gate International Exposition was taking place in 1939. It was from this base on Treasure Island that the world-famous clippers would start out on their trips to the Orient. We returned to Treasure Island to learn more about the China Clipper's rich history, and while there, ended up finding California's gold. Now, we were on Treasure Island just as the U.S. Naval Station, which had been there since 1941, was closing down for good. Our first stop was the beautiful old administration building, built in the late 1930s and used then as Pan Am headquarters. We had arranged for a mini reunion of sorts, inviting former Pan Am employees and Clipper pilots and crew members to come back to Treasure Island for the day. A large group showed up to visit old friends and swap Clipper stories from the good old days.
This is where I started to work with Pan Am, and I was hired out of this area. And this one building was the Pacific headquarters for Pan Am, and it included ground maintenance, operations, and engineering, basic engineering, for the whole western part of the United States.
Wow. Well, let's go inside because this is amazing. It's a beautiful structure.
A beautiful facade.
And it basically looks just like it did back then.
It did. No change at all.
Now, on this building, Pan American had both floors right here, and the tower up on top of the building, you can't see it right now, but there's a tower up there that controlled us as we came in and departed and so forth. They had a big tower up there right now.
And we got tour kids going through today, and John, that's part of what this building is all about too, isn't it?
Did you have fun at the museum today? Good. You gonna come back again soon? Yeah! All right.
Now this is kind of what this place is all about too, isn't it?
This is what the San Francisco Airport Commission is planning to do, is maintain this wonderful museum and keep this as a destination to explore and learn about the history of Treasure Island, which includes a variety of subjects, including naval and commercial aviation.
So it's really a museum that points up all the aviation history that has taken place right here on Treasure Island since those early years.
That's exactly right.
All right, let's go in and take a look at some of it. All right, we're going in and we got a bunch of people standing right here. You must be the docent.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
You sound like you're giving a tour here.
Well, I was just answering some questions for people.
Well, give us the tour over
All
here.
right.
What have we got? These are old. Oh, okay, look. This is the way it was in the very earliest days.
Right, and this photo here is showing us how it was going to look if it became San Francisco's airport.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, as we know now, this is the airport that never got to be. They had the fair here, and the intent was that after the fair, they would demolish all the fair buildings, leaving this building and the two hangars out and back. And of course, this building was going to be the airport building.
Now,
You can see,
here's the dedication,
right, 1938.
and here we go. We just moved right into it. The picture of the Clipper sitting right out beside the building here.
This is one of the Boeing 314 China Clippers, and you would get your ticket to the Orient. You'd come in this building in the front door.
Okay, this is the building where we are right
Yes,
now.
sir, that's
right
correct.
here
And see the little round control tower up on top?
on the top.
Mhm.
And here's the World's Fair building
Yes.
still over here.
This is the Tower of the Sun,
Now,
which
who had a picture they were going to point out to us over here?
Well, my picture's in here. Right after I was hired in 1943. Right up here's a picture of me. I'd just been hired in this building upstairs, and even my mother's here. Got my Navy overcoat to go with the Navy uniform right there. Of course, my hair was a little darker, and I was a little thinner about
But we're standing just about where you were standing in this picture with the old Pan American Airways.
very famous globe right there.
Is this about the way that it really looked?
This is exactly the way it looked. And for the engineer, I can speak for him. If you can see this small window up in what we called the cabane, that's where he sat, and it was his only view to the outside.
Now we've got a very interesting picture here, Wally. Well, here, look, Louis, this is the World's Fair going down here on Treasure Island.
And here's the rotunda that we're in right now.
This building right here.
Right there. And here's the ferry boat. This picture was taken early '39. And the ferry boats went to San Francisco and around the island over to Oakland.
But the main part of this picture is right up here.
Oh, yes. I was going to get to that. This is tail number on this airplane is the 02. This was caught in the war down between the island of Noumea, New Caledonia, and Auckland, New Zealand, and the captain's name was Bob Ford, and they were caught down there, and there's no way to get back up here because the Japanese were at Honolulu, and they didn't know how long they were going to be there. So the company had the crew, fly it from Auckland back up to New Zealand, pick up the Pan Am personnel that were based at New Zealand, take them back down to Auckland, and then that crew was there 2 weeks, and they started flying this. No way to come back this way, so they went clear around the world. That was the first Pan American or first airliner to go around the world with the crew. And
whose names are these on here?
These are many of the pilots, engineers, and any of the ground people that actually worked on the seaplanes. We got them to sign this. This is going to be in the museum at San Francisco Airport right
Boy,
here.
this is that's priceless. That's why you won't let anybody touch this except you.
That's right.
He's been guarding this all day.
That's right.
Now, what have we got over here, Bob?
Well, this is a set of dishes which you would eat on the Clipper if you took the trip, and here we have a picture of people eating on the Clipper.
Wait a minute, this was inside the airplane?
Inside.
Look how big, look at this.
Quite elegant, quite a nice way to
Look at that,
fly.
it looks like a living room almost.
That's right, and you see how people were dressed. They dressed to the nines when they flew.
And here they are,
This is in
two
the
young
Boeing
ladies
Clipper,
getting ready to take a
siesta.
I guess they slept on these
they
things.
slept aboard them. Exactly.
This has got to be one of your favorite
Right, it's one of
most
my
popular
favorites.
areas.
It's one of my favorites because in the Navy, I did 3 years duty on Midway Island. And that's how I got connected with this museum. I found pieces of a broken plate underwater. And so I brought it up here, and they said, "Oh, what do you do?" And I said, "Nothing." So I got to be a docent.
So you found a piece of broken china from the China Clipper underwater in Midway.
At Midway Island in 1967. So.
Now that's a good Clipper story.
How about that?
But you know, I think there are probably bits of the Clipper all around the world, aren't there?
Oh, there are.
Looking at these pictures, what did these passengers do all of that time? I mean, we're talking about long periods of time in an airplane.
It was 19 and a half hours to Honolulu from here.
Well, in the early days, it was even longer.
Right, yeah.
Well, what would they do?
They probably ate a lot. Pan Am fed people good, I believe. And what did you do? Well, there was only a few people in the early days because it was rather expensive to fly. And in readings about this, the early China Clippers, usually the crew outnumbered the passengers because it was very costly to fly.
How much would it cost to fly from San Francisco to Honolulu?
We have listed $1,700 round trip.
And that was a lot of money in the late 30s.
And I can remember that you could buy a Plymouth automobile for $600 in those days.
Yeah.
So that was an extreme amount of money.
So who would go on these trips? People who were adventuresome?
Adventuresome and big names, like there was the wife of the president, Procter & Gamble, a retired Marine colonel. You had to have money, prestigious way to go. A lot of people went by ship, but this was something to keep up with the Joneses. You could go on an airplane. This was new.
Every departure day is a holiday when hundreds of visitors come to watch the takeoffs of the Clipper ships. From nearby transcontinental airports, special Pan American limousines bring Orient-bound passengers to Pan American's airport on Treasure Island in San Francisco Bay. Regular weekly departures of these huge liners carry United States mail, cargoes of important commerce, and 30 to 40 passengers westward to Hawaii, across the stepping stone islands of the Great Pacific, Midway, Wade, Guam, the Philippines, to China, and the gateway to the Orient on the other side of the world. Inside the modern terminal, efficient expert personnel quickly check the passengers through the routine of ticket examination, luggage weighing, and the few details of departure. With the same ease and dispatch of a great railroad terminal, one leaves here for an air voyage across the Pacific to Honolulu, to the South Sea Islands, the Antipodes, the Philippines, or the Orient, with all the simplicity of commuting to a nearby city. 3 o'clock San Francisco time, and the captain and his highly trained crew of flight officers board the Clipper as the already signal is given, indicating that every inch of the great airliner, her engines and instruments are in perfect condition. Here are specialists in navigation, radio communication, engine control and seamanship, all veterans of hundreds of voyages across the Pacific. 2 bells, and the passengers follow the flight crew aboard the Clipper. Friends and families come to bid bon voyage. And in the bustle and excitement, the always present news photographers are on hand to photograph the many notables from government, business, motion picture, and theatrical circles who regularly use the Clipper ships for their trans-Pacific travels.
All this talk about flying on the Clipper got us in a traveling mood. So we left the museum in the old terminal building and walked right outside to the water, to the area where the original Clippers boarded and then taxied out to take off. Of course, all the original Clippers are gone, but to kind of recreate what it must have been like back in the 30s and 40s, we arranged for an albatross flying boat to return to Treasure Island on this special day. Now this is exciting. We're getting ready to watch the plane land right here. And all 3 of you have seen this before back in the days when the real Clipper was landing. What was that like?
Well, it was quite a sight there. That I worked at the fair in 1940, and every Friday at 3:30 or 4 o'clock the plane would take off, and It was just like seeing a moonshot today. People, in those days, we never saw aircraft very often, and it was such an impressive sight. I was working over the gateway, and we had a chance to go over to the parking lot where we had a nice shot of the.
Oh, here he comes! Oh, look!
Yeah.
Now, obviously, he's not landing this time. Now, that brings to mind the story you were telling me a minute ago about some of these hotshot pilots.
Yeah, Steve Bancroft was his name. Ordinarily, we would taxi out near the Berkeley Pier and take off towards the Golden Gate. But he put the aircraft on the step here, went out under the cantilever span, stayed low, went under the Bay Bridge, stayed low, and went out under the Golden Gate Bridge.
Wow.
That was not a
regulation
no,
departure.
Not hardly.
But these pilots kind of in a way were marching to the beat of their own drummer, weren't they?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Now, what about your stories about this place?
Okay, I did the same thing my first flight here. I was 5th officer, the bow boy. We left the dock right over here with John Hamilton, who was always trying to be a Steve Bancroft, and we went to full power right through here and went through the bridge right over there, went around the island here, left the water just on the other side of the island, went under the bridge, so that's 2 bridges there, went right straight for Fisherman's Wharf, went over Fisherman's Wharf at 200 feet, wiggling the wings, and the plane had a wingspan of 152 feet. And we went right over Fisherman's Wharf and right out under the bridge. So I went under 3 bridges my first trip, and I thought, oh man, what an airline. This airline flying is tremendous.
It is exciting just watching a big plane land on the water. But we were in for an even bigger treat. Okay, we're now, well, this is kind of a historical reenactment we're going through. This isn't historically correct exactly. We're heading out. Now, what was this area called right here?
Well, now it's called Clipper Cove because of the clippers here. But it was just the lagoon here.
So you all just called it the lagoon?
Lagoon, right.
Okay, so we're in the lagoon.
Right.
And we're heading out to this plane. Now, what's this plane that we've got out here now?
It's a SA-16 Grumman Albatross. This is probably manufactured maybe 1950, since World War II.
So it's old, but it's not as old or nearly as big as the Clipper.
That's right.
But it's the only plane we could find that still lands and takes off in the water, so it's kind of close.
Right, absolutely. It's maritime. That's the big thing.
Now, you all wouldn't have been coming out to it like this. It was docked right up.
Once in a while. See, there were docks all along here, ramps going up
out here.
Along here, and if the planes, if all the docks were full of an airplane sitting there, then they'd park it out here, and the passenger airplane always left from over here, so the passengers could walk out from the rotunda up there, the big round building, which was the terminal, would walk out. The crew would come out first, marching 2 by 2, Navy style. Our uniforms were Navy.
I've heard about that.
That's right, with a white hat and everything.
Well, we're not in uniform today, and this isn't a Clipper, but what we're basically doing is going to recreate the excitement of, and there was excitement, wasn't there?
There certainly was, yeah. When you stop to think that you're faced with about 25 hours of flight, unpressurized, non-stop, just to the first point of landing, Honolulu, it was not just, you know, like going across the bridge.
So there was adrenaline flowing.
There was adrenaline, yeah.
things were so loud.
Oh yeah, that's why we're all deaf.
That's why we're having ear problems today.
Really?
Normally anything above 105 decibels is damaging, and we used to fly for hours at 110 to 120.
Yeah, there's Alcatraz. Boy, it must have been great for you coming back into the city after having been out for so long.
Oh, it was quite a sight. We've been looking at islands for 2 weeks, and a big city looked pretty good.
Yeah. Well, how does it feel to be back up?
Very, very good. I was just looking at in the cockpit, the altimeter shows 250 feet, and the airspeed is 90 knots, and that's about the speed that we used to fly, 90 to 110 knots. But can you imagine going 2,500 miles at this speed for this long?
With this much noise?
That's why it took 25 hours to get across.
When you fly a plane like this and you have a couple of guys on board like we've got on board today, do you ever think back to what it would have been like for those original pilots who were flying those original China Clippers right here where we are today?
Oh, I sure do. It's real nostalgic. It kind of scares me to death just thinking about what some of the things these guys have done and the trips they've taken, how they navigated. We've got it so much easier today. Man, and what they did really, really impresses me.
They're kind of legends, aren't they, among pilots today, what they did?
I think it's a story that really hasn't been told. I'm sure glad this is going on. And I think it's an incredible feat, just what they accomplished, yeah.
Because they were in many ways charting uncharted routes. They were going where people had never been before.
That's what impressed me the most. I mean, this is something that nobody done. The distances they flew, how they managed to, to navigate the routes, improve the routes, the airplanes they had, the technology they had was all new. Yeah, they're heroes in my book.
Well, you got 2 of them on board today.
I'm trying real hard not to screw up and make any mistakes.
Well, you're back up in the plane.
Yeah, it feels good. I can't, it's been so long ago since we were on the boats, well, some 50 years. So it's quite an experience, I can tell you that.
Yeah, I have a home-built airplane my son and I built. It has 160 horsepower, and we cruise it at twice the speed we're going right now, over 200 miles an hour. And that's progress for you compared to this thing. So this is really, really history right here.
We're going back in time.
That's right. Oh, it's wonderful. Just wonderful.
To the wonderful China Clipper Day.
3 p.m., November 22nd, 1935, the China Clipper rising from the waters of San Francisco Bay with the first United States airmail bound for China. Effortless precision that thrilled a watching world. On to Midway, Wake, and Guam. Into her base at Manila. In all the stirring history of the Great Pacific, there can be no more thrilling chapter. The China Clippers sail again.
Well, hello everybody, I'm Huell Hauser, and I sure hope you enjoyed this adventure. If you'd like to see it again or share it with your family or friends, or perhaps donate a copy to your local school or library, it's available on video cassette and on DVD. All you have to do is call 1-800-266-5727 and we'll be glad to send it to you right away.